Here are two books that I read recently that I wasn't big fans of, but I still finished. First book I'm going to talk about is this one right here, Little Eve by Catriona Ward. And it's set in a remote Scottish island of Altanahara. Excuse me if I butcher that. This little island that it takes place on is cut off by the tidal causeway. So think 28 years later where they have to cross that path. Now it's about a secluded family of 6 called the Children, led by Uncle. That's literally the name. And they worship a snake deity called the Adder. Now it's told in dual timelines from 1917 to about 1945-ish. And it's narrated by 2 characters, Dina and Eve. Now the inciting incident when you first pop the book open is a butcher walks in through open gates of the area in which they live and finds 5 bodies placed in a star, each missing an eye, with 1 survivor, and that is Dina. Essentially, the uncle character is abusive and has kept the kids in isolation, and some pretty insane things go down under the watch of this uncle. Themes about this is cult psychology, unreliable narration, faith versus delusion, and trauma. Now it has been highly acclaimed. Many people have loved this, and a lot of outlets have either awarded it or recognized it for some of the stuff and the atmosphere going on. Now I'm not saying this book is bad, I just don't think it's my cup of tea. I think it was a hard read. Definitely used some lingo that if you're not familiar with, it could get a little weird. And I also think that the way it's narrated is a little tough, as you're getting interesting perspectives and it can be a little confusing understanding who is telling what and what story is happening via the narration. But it is well written, and I just don't think this was my book. Now the reason why I categorized Little Eve in this video was mainly because it's such a hard read. And that's really simply it. I didn't find myself really intrigued during the middle of it. The beginning was interesting, and then of course the end, as everything comes to a climax, that was really interesting to go about. But I just found myself getting a little bored or just not really connecting with the story. It is really well done, and I recommend you guys check it out if it's something that sounds like you might want to read. But for me, it's just not my cup of tea. I don't hate it. Definitely made me a better reader when it came to the next books that were on my list. It was such a hard read that it definitely helped me read better. If you guys want to check it out, highly recommend. She is a good writer, Catriona Ward, and I definitely am curious to see what other works she has been a part of. I just don't think this one was it for me. If you're into kind of that gothic horror cult vibe, this could be up your alley. I definitely recommend it for those who are into such a thing. But for me, again, wasn't my favorite book I've read recently, but I did really enjoy the ending because it definitely made heads and tails of a lot of questions I had going on while reading this. This book is only about 265 pages, so it's not that big of a book, but it still gave me a run for my money. I just didn't find myself really wanting to continue when I was halfway through it, but I pushed through, and I'm glad I did, because then I got the answers, of course, and found out what the heck was going on and gained some insights on the opening scene. I thought that it definitely was an interesting ending. There's a lot of stuff that happens in here where you're just finding yourself saying, what the hell? My goodness, I can't believe this shit is going down. It definitely is of the era of the old times, so just kind of keep that in mind as you read it. The next book that I didn't really find myself enjoying, this one's a little bit bigger of a bite of the apple, was Stephen King's Fairy Tale. Now, I thought this book was interesting. The first part of the book really loved. The ending definitely enjoyed, but while I was in the middle of this, it just lost me. I was bored. I was thinking of stopping and starting something new, but I pushed through because, well, I was like 300 pages in or whatever, and I couldn't turn back. So I kept reading, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going on my favorites list. This one is about Charlie Reed, who's 17 in a small town of Illinois. His mom died when he was young, and his dad's grief kind of took over his dad's life, manifesting in an unhealthy connection with with alcohol leading to alcoholism, which had Charlie, the main character, becoming self-reliant at a very young age. Soon he meets an older gentleman named Howard and his dog Radar, and eventually becomes the caretaker who helps out around the house and just does things after an odd meeting and an odd interaction and everything that led to that. Now, it wouldn't be a fairy tale if we just had it there. It would be more of like a happy movie little thing. So essentially how it turns into a fairy tale is this old guy has a secret, as most old guys do. Essentially, there's something going on with the location at which this house sits, and there's some weird stuff going on which leads Charlie to ask what the hell is going on. I won't say exactly what, because I feel like that was my favorite part of the book, was finding out all the secrets of Mr. Bowditch and his dog Radar. And it was interesting to be a part of the journey, because in the very beginning, before the location changes and the setting changes, I found myself enjoying that read. I was hooked. I was hooked with the setting. I was hooked with the story, but I'm not a fairy tale guy. I'm going to be honest. Fantasy and fairy tale stuff like this was something I was new to. I'm more of a horror kind of action kind of guy. So that's also why I read Little Eve, because I was thinking gothic horror. My goodness, that could be good. Now, the themes of this book are grief, caretaking as a rite of passage, cost of magic wishes, duty versus destiny, and it seemed like a love letter to fairy tale tropes such as Jack and the Beanstalk, Rumpelstiltskin, and Grimm. But I found myself again, the intro amazing, the setup amazing, the first couple beats of the whole book amazing, the ending freaking great. But for about 300 pages I completely got bored. I wanted to put it down. I was thinking maybe I should do another book, because I'm just reading for fun, something I've been doing to help me get to sleep at night, and I've been just burning through books. So I figured I'd stick it out, check it out, and I'm glad it did, because it turned around for sure a little bit more into the thick of it. This book, as you can see, definitely a bigger bite of the apple here. Lots to chew from. With a total of 598 pages, I definitely had some chewing to do, and I do believe it was a good book. Again, just not my cup of tea, but I love Stephen King. I've been reading all his books because I have a ton of them, which is why I figured I'll try something new. I don't think it was his strongest writing yet, but I do believe he had some cool stuff going on, some cool ideas. And again, it was a love letter to the older fairy tales, which he kind of does mention throughout the book. But if you're into fairy tales, you're into fantasy, that style, of course, this is probably your book. For me, again, not so much. I'm glad I finished it, and I'm glad I got the closure and the conclusion that I was curious about, and all the questions that were in my mind kind of did get answered, and a lot of what I was feeling throughout the middle went away in a sense of, oh wow, I'm hooked again. But it took a while to get there. So those are two books I read recently that I wasn't big fans of, but I'm not saying they're bad books, just not for me. And to conclude this video, the next books I will be reading, which I've finally figured out my lineup. First one I'm actually already reading, Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and it's a book about writing novels. I'm learning the beats and learning how to do the setup. I really enjoy it, and it's been really fun. I have a script idea for a horror movie, so I might just turn it into a novel, but we shall see. And this has been helping me get to where I need to be and plan out majority of everything that's going to happen within it. And I've already started on Act 1 of planning the beats and planning everything, so I'm excited to continue into Act 2 to see what the beats are, which I'll probably be reading tonight. Another series I have been reading, I read the first one, is S.D. Perry's Resident Evil. This is the second one, Caliban Cove, and it is more of an original story by S.D. Perry, whereas the first one was Resident Evil 1. I believe the third book is Resident Evil 2, and then it goes back into original story, and then Resident Evil 3 story. So I'm excited to read this. This book was published in 1998. As you can see, it's in really good condition. I got it for about $10 or so, so I'm excited to hop into that. And yeah, and then of course the last book that I had to pick up, because it was actually kind of a hard find since everyone's kind of on the same page with this, especially with Seth MacFarlane and the whole Peacock thing that just announced. But Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now I'm really excited to read this. My brother's been listening to the audiobook. I'm excited to dive into this. I'm a hardback kind of guy, so of course I had to get the hardback. But yeah, this is something that I will be definitely hopping into. I don't know if it's going to be SD Perry first or this. Maybe SD Perry, because that's been kind of long awaited. I've been kind of scoping that one out. But this is also something that came onto the radar, which I've also been scoping out, and I finally found a good deal and a copy to pick up. So those are the 3 books that are on the timeline of reading right now, and I'm excited to share my thoughts when I'm done with them. If you guys want to see more book reviews, or if you got any books you recommend, please drop them down in the comments. I will be doing lots of stuff about books coming soon as I read more, and just kind of wanting to share what I'm reading and what I liked and what I didn't like. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one if you're still around. Later, y'all.